Hi Sagittarius, welcome to your June 2020 Astro Alchemy. It's Rena here, your fellow Sagittarian traveler through life. My Sun and Mercury are in Sagittarius. But this reading is also for those who have Sagittarius rising, and for you this will be your natal chart. And it goes without saying that some of these transits may not be on the exact dates that I state them because of your particular chart. If you're listening for your sun sign in Sag, your rising sign determines your natal chart, and that can be a whole other ball of wax. And so I would love to read for any and all Sagittarians who are interested, because it is a lot of fun exploring the natal chart and seeing hidden talent, seeing patterns. It's just, it's really something that is quite amazing. And also looking at the themes that are coming up for the next 12 months. So check me out. The link is below. And so it goes without saying that in June, because the sun is in the opposite sign of Gemini for a good portion of the month, for the first 3 weeks, that this can sometimes bring up relationship issues. I say relationship meaning a more bonded type of relationship, not a casual fling, which is more of the fifth house. But if you are involved with somebody, or even like an ex, because we have Venus retrograding in Gemini in that opposite sign, and that can bring back exes. So that seventh house is activated for sure, and the sun is there until the 20th. And the other thing that when I was looking at the transits that it occurred to me is that it seems like we really end the month with a bang, where there's a lot happening in the last 10 days in particular. Because the first part of the month you have Venus, the sun and Venus in Gemini, which is a light kind of a sign, and which we, is actually a welcome relief from kind of that Taurian energy that is kind of plodding and it's earthbound. And, Gemini kind of soars through the air sign. I think of Tinkerbell when I think of Gemini. So that fairy type of energy that's kind of ethereal and, kind of light-hearted. It's funny, I just thought of the word sprite, and it sounds like spirit. It must have the same phoneme there that means the same thing. But anyway, there's that Gemini kind of going off on a tangent type of deal. So relationship issues can come to the fore, can come, up front. And even if you're like in a current relationship, this can bring out some of the issues that need to be addressed, or at least internally, you're wondering about the worthwhileness of something. However, I feel that this can be actually a beautiful time for couples who are reigniting that romance. Maybe you're doing things as a couple more now when Venus is retrograde. I definitely don't think it has to be anything bad. And Venus goes direct on the 25th. So there you have that kind of a finale towards the end of the month. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, because even though the sun is there with Venus and is really kind of directing things, we also have Mars, which kind of pushes its own agenda in Pisces, this water sign with the fish swimming in opposite directions. So for everybody, there may be that kind of scattered energy where they don't feel like they're fully engaged in one particular place. And for Sagittarius, this is the fourth house of home and family. So there may be like some kind of developments in the on the home front with you. Now, if there is trouble in a marriage, if you are rethinking this union, for instance. Mars in the fourth can bring conflicts within the home. However, this can even be fighting over real estate. Should we sell this house? Should we move? You know, like, or what do you call it? Not redecorating, but remodeling. Even some construction work can be Mars in the fourth house. And, you know, what else can I say about Mars in the fourth house? Your mother, any kind of unusual activity, you know, greater activity with her, doing things with her, or conflicts with her that turn up. So that's happening. So these are personal matters that need to be attended to. And you know, if that wasn't enough on your plate, there's a lunar eclipse at 15 degrees of Sag occurring on the 5th of the month. Now, this is really, I personally, as a late degree Sag, am really looking forward to this eclipse, and I'll tell you why. If you're born in the last 14 degrees of Sag, so, you know, from 16 degrees onwards, this will fall in your 12th house rather than your first house. And this can be like letting go of addictions, karmic attachments, and that can be very freeing, and that can make it easier to move forward in your life. We are having a solar eclipse at the end of this year in Sagittarius. And so between these, you know, in this next six-month period between June 5th and the one in December, this is a time of letting go of some of these things that have held you back. And really, the beauty part of an eclipse is that the universe is really doing a lot of the heavy lifting, where things just can magically go away. You know, I've heard of people talk about having addictions, maybe sometimes for years and years, and they woke up one morning or maybe it was in the height of some emotion, and all of a sudden they had no urge to do it. How do these things happen? We call it grace from God. So if you want to look at eclipses as God's grace, you can do that as well. Some people fear eclipses, and I think in ancient times they were fearful of eclipses, weren't they? Because of the darkening of the sky or what have you. But it can be very helpful, because it can really make somebody able to let go of something that them doing it on their own would have seemed almost impossible. And so anything that holds you back, 12th house can also bring cosmic downloads. This is, again, especially if it has some kind of connection to past lives, and maybe you have a dream. This is the house of dreams. I mean, not like wishing, that's the 11th house, but wishes, but dream time, you know, sleep dreams. And maybe you have like a prophetic situation going on there. For the rest of you, this is going to be in the first house. So this is more of on the conscious level, letting go of things. The first house can be your body. Letting go of the need to present yourself in a certain way. I've given this example before as somebody with Taurus rising, being a sun in Sagittarius, that in conjunction, that weird combination of sun and rising sign. I oftentimes would dress very sexily, if that's a word. And it was so different than my mentality, personality. So it was very confusing probably to others. And my image, or I don't even like to use the word image because that sounds superficial, but who I wanted to become, which is the sun in this lifetime, was a bit obscured by that hot chick in the miniskirt and tight tops prancing around for the first, well, not the first 30 years. I wasn't wearing a miniskirt when I was 2 years old, but you get the picture. And I think it's just, I was probably going through my first Saturn return. I was around 30, and all of a sudden I felt naked, or I felt like I didn't like it anymore. You could say, did I grow up at that point? Maybe. Maybe I just was over it. It wasn't that important to me. I had moved on. So without attaching any kind of value to that, or value judgment, just this thing of like wanting to be different. And so I just naturally gravitated to more modesty. And now you should see, what I'm wearing right now. Actually, I'm wearing a t-shirt that has the High Priestess on it. So that's pretty cool. But, fleece pants, really the opposite of how I used to be. But comfortable, very comfortable. And so there may be something that's going on with you in your life that you need to match that with how you dress. Not to focus on the superficial, but just in terms of where you're at in other areas, or how you wish to carry yourself. And this could even relate to your physical appearance in terms of health. Even though the 6th house is connected to health, the 1st house is connected to the body. So we can't just totally, ignore that and how that relates to the health. So, looking at it from those perspectives, we can see exactly what this can mean for all of us. So I'm looking forward to this. I hope that you are too. On the 18th, we have a Mercury retrograde. This one is in Cancer, a very sensitive sign. So we have Mars in Pisces and Mercury in Cancer. These water signs. Cancer for Sag is actually going to be the 8th house, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to do my mental gymnastics. Yeah. If Gemini is the opposite sign, that's 7th, 8th, right? So, sometimes if there is some kind of a probate issue, Mercury retrograde can be like the will is up for review. This may even have some kind of, if you are involved in any kind of metaphysical studies, this can simply go along with that. Now, with that, for those of you who have the full moon, I said full moon, but lunar eclipse in the 12th house, this Mercury retrograde can be part of that. Trying to determine like what is the kind of spiritual studies that you want to engage in. You may have gone in one direction. For instance, I find that some tarot card readers, or especially astrologers, it seems like, that they kind of do it for a while and then they go into something else. Why is that? Well, they kind of evolve in their belief system, and they say, I don't really vibe with this anymore. And that's actually a good thing, because it means that they are really serious about what they're putting out into the universe. And I, applaud anybody who does that, because that has happened where I have subscribed to somebody and all of a sudden they just change their YouTube video topics, or whatever you want to call it, their focus, and that's because they have these experiences, spiritual experiences or downloads that make them say, I don't want to do this anymore. And, life is a journey, and, being rigid is not an option. For me, I'm sure a lot of you, it's the same thing, that we're constantly taking in information and altering our behavior as a result. So this could be happening for you at a deep level with the 8th house. This could even be shadow work, 8th house, Mercury retrograde. For some of, I hate to get too complicated, because, again, I'm not all that great at kind of doing this in my mind, and I'm afraid I'm going to be inaccurate about it. I'm assuming that if you're born, again, because it's at the middle of the sign, it's 14 degrees of Cancer, almost the middle of the sign, so it's easier for me to kind of do this in my head. But if you're in the last 15 degrees of Sag, this is going to fall into your 7th house, actually, I think. I'm hoping. And so this could be, again, something to do with your relationship. But even like some kind of a legal thing, if the 8th house is shared resources, the 7th house are legal matters. And that could be like even some kind of an inheritance or a divorce where you're kind of like splitting up the assets. That can be something that has to be dealt with. And so you can look at it from that perspective. And but if it's in your 8th house, and you do know that there's something going on with money that you share with other people, or even like taxes that that you may have been flagged, or for an audit, even tax returns, money that was owed to you, just understand that it will get sorted out at a later date. These are very short transits, the retrogrades of Mercury and Venus. So it's not something that you have to worry about for a very long time. There is a shadow period after these planets go direct, but because they're personal planets, even those shadow periods are relatively short. So just hang in there, you'll be okay. On the 21st, we have a solar eclipse. Following that solstice on the 20th, at least where I live, it's the 20th. It may be the 21st. Some places are like 15 or 16 hours ahead of me. So this is a very powerful time, when we change seasons. So to have a solar eclipse following that, I've been looking forward to this for a very long time. I don't know if it's going to be as meaningful as I feel it will be, but I do feel it will be. And I'm not by any stretch of the imagination a mundane astrologer. I don't really get that much into predictions when it comes to, I'm not into the world events type of things, but United States is a Cancerian country, born on the 4th of July, and I believe even having Gemini rising. So that's going to be a sign that experiences eclipses as well, an eclipse particularly in 2020, but Sagittarius is the opposite sign of Gemini. So that lunar eclipse in June may impact the United States. And also in July, we're having an eclipse in Capricorn, the opposite sign of Cancer, and it's a lunar eclipse, so it will be opposing the sun, and it will be opposing the United States then, and it's happening on July 5th, the day after the 4th of July. So I think that something is getting resolved with, all of the things that the United States has been dealing with. And of course, there was a lunar eclipse in Cancer at the beginning of this year. So this situation this world situation that has been particularly impactful on the United States may be resolved in that time frame from January, where it may have been already in play, through July. So that may be a story that is unfolding. And maybe even something revealed that has to do with everything that happened. But in any case, I am looking forward to the solar eclipse. I feel like I'm always, because I'm in the northern hemisphere, so I'm always excited about the summer solstice. It seems like such a special time when the sun is at its height. But even at the winter solstice, for those of you down under it, it's very, it's there. I don't know. It just feels very spiritual, very energized, and sacred. Very sacred. So this is for Sagittarius, again, the 8th house, the what we would call the phoenix rising from the ashes, perhaps. Now, because it's at 0 degrees, a lot of, unless you're born on November 22nd or 23rd or what have you, this will likely be in your 7th house. So, this could be wonderful for relationships, especially if you're someone who is has been, having a long-term relationship that has gone through different phases. Those of us who have been in relationships for many years know that we have different seasons in our relationship. And even, those of us who have relatively good relationships, there still are seasons, because all of us are going through things in life, and that impacts our relationship. Our relationship is an entity unto itself, but we are separate entities unto ourselves as well, coming together. So there are different realities that are melding, and to me, this can be like almost resetting the relationship. But it's, depending on where you are in the spectrum, this could, in some cases, form a conjunction. Well, actually, yeah. For some of you, it could form a conjunction with the 8th house, and then it's like a rebirth, 2 times over. Another thing, too, is that those of you who work with clients, perhaps you will have a new surge in clients. So that can be fantastic. If you felt like, even if you have a steady stable of clients and things like that, it makes perfect sense that you always want to incorporate new people into the mix. And this might be that wonderful infusion of new people into your professional life. So I think it's going to be wonderful. And just, what it represents in general. Cancer is a healing sign. It's a water sign. And it's just, it's also, it's very intuitive and creative. So looking forward to that and nurturing, On the 23rd, Neptune goes retrograde. Again, another placement in Pisces, the 4th house. So looking at this area of the home front, how is it, affecting you in terms of what you're experiencing? Are you somebody who is kind of deluded about something at home? Even like the physical structure. If you are doing construction with Mars there, you may discover that there's some kind of major flaw that needs fixing at a deep level that was hidden. Neptune can be something that is hidden. And maybe, you discover a deception. If you were building a home and somehow they didn't do a good job of it, things along that nature. But it's good in the sense that you see things more clearly. And for instance, for me, my sun in Sag is very close to this degree of 20 degrees where Neptune is retrograding. So for those of you who have Neptune, I don't know what the orb would be, maybe about up to 10 degrees, who knows, but in that vicinity of 20 degrees of Sagittarius, let's just say 5 to 7 to 10 degrees in either direction, you may, that sounds like just about every Sagittarian, perhaps this has been a time when Neptune has been in Pisces, where you felt particularly befuddled. I know I've felt very spacey. And this has been, especially as it's gotten closer to my degree of sun. So that can be quite disorientating. And now that Neptune is going to retrograde, perhaps you will see some of that effect and you'll kind of snap out of it. And on the 25th, we have Venus going direct in Gemini and 5 degrees of Gemini. And so this is kind of resolving whatever was going on that caused you to really evaluate your relationship, and perhaps, or if it's, it would probably be for all of us, for a lot of people, for relationship issues, and trying to decide whether or not to continue. If you have an ex that has come back into the picture, to determine whether or not things have changed. Just because somebody comes back doesn't mean that it's a good thing, and that you should get back together with that person, even if they are the ones initiating it. So determining that. So anyway, Sag, I hope that you're looking forward to this month as much as I am. There's a lot going on, to say the least. And have a great month. Thank you for listening. Bye.